Well, hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the GEB podcast. I'm David Groves with you today on the show, and we have a really great guest with us. He's a guy that's really had his finger on the pulse of what's happening in new tech and embracing Web3 and all those things that have to do with social media and more. Nick Rottola joins us today. Nick, welcome.
Thanks for having me, David. It's awesome to be here.
So right off the bat, let's talk about, the elephant in the room. What is Web3? What is this new tech for those that are maybe they live in that social media space? Some of our older audience, maybe they're just a Facebook or an Instagram scroller.
So let's go back a second and let's look at this from a biblical worldview. So both the printing press and technology were started by believers, and they were both sort of given to God and saying, hey, God used this. President Wilson, Billy Wilson even said recently, he said, this is really our time. We can reach the whole world, with technology right now, so much of the world. You have social media who has 5.2 billion users, and we've only reached 4 billion with the gospel one time. That's a crazy...
It's a crazy stat.
Crazy stat, right? So social media companies have reached... are reaching regularly 5.2 billion people. And we've only gotten the gospel to 4 billion people. Of the 4 billion people we've gotten the gospel to, 2.7, 2.8 billion profess Christians, about 70%. Out of those 2.8 billion, you have 15% that read their Bible every day. That's a Barna research. And then 6% that have a biblical worldview. So you have, let's say, 400 million, whatever the math is there, 15% of 2.8 billion. You have 280 million that read their Bible every day. Really, really strong believers out there. But unfortunately, only about a third of those, believe the Bible is the infallible Word of God. Like Oral Roberts would you come into that school, you pretty much have a biblical worldview. I mean, you could fight it. I think maybe the small fraction fights it, and they're like, I'll make my own rules on top of the Bible that supersede. But for the most part, my life took off just being around an environment where I learned to read my Bible and I learned to have a biblical worldview. And so I'm in that niche of that's my community. That's my tribe, is people that really love to read the Bible and really believe it's all true. And if you believe that, that means God makes the rules. We don't make the rules. And that's the main thing it means is like God decides which is true. God decides what's right and wrong. God decides what we should dwell on. God decides what we should look at. God decides how we should think, what we should see. And so I believe I'm just part of this wave of Christian entrepreneurs that really love God and have a biblical worldview and want to be in technology and want to do it in a really major way. We sort of just dipped our toes in technology, and most Christian entrepreneurs started chicken companies and real estate companies, and we're in railroads and we're in, typical industry, manufacturing, and a lot of them did really, really well. But unfortunately, their businesses did not touch culture. You can make a case that, Chick-fil-A has done something, because just the way they represent themselves, and you can just sort of feel it, that they have a Christian culture. But what are you talking about? You're talking about 25 seconds of interaction, 10 seconds of interaction once a week, or every 3 weeks.
Right.
What are we talking about here? With social media, you're talking about 5 hours a day is how much they control what these people see and think. 5 hours a day. That's the average for Gen Z in the U.S. Okay.
Wow.
So if you're wondering, why are they dropping off at 18? Half of them drop off. They're raised right and then they drop off. Well, they're spending 5 hours a day on social media. That's 35 hours a week. And so, maybe you had them for an hour on Sunday, and you were giving them a message, and they were there. But that's just 3% of what they're chewing on that week. if you just compare it to social media, and then you have other factors like school and what's the school teaching them, and then peers. So big scope. My dad's a pastor. I came through Oral Roberts. My dad's a Rhema guy. I came through Oral Roberts. I felt like I could do anything. What your parents tell you growing up, you can do anything. And you know what Oral Roberts gets you feeling with like a bulletproof vest on. I can do anything in this world. I can dominate. Yeah. And so, so I've been I was in the blockchain space for a couple of years, and now I'm building a basically clean version of TikTok. That's not a Christian app. There's no politics on it, so it's not a conservative or liberal app. And what it basically does is it solves one major problem, which is that social media is very toxic. It's not the concept of consuming short form vertical videos that's bad. TikTok's not inherently bad. And I can show you a lot of examples that, man, there's some really good things about TikTok, but then they got all their cheap tricks. They got all the anorexia content, all the porn, all the fighting videos that they pepper in, all the unrealistic lifestyle, unrealistic beauty, preteen dance videos, and all the stuff that you would say is definitely not wholesome content.
Yeah.
And so I think it really, David, it wasn't something I, grew up really wanting to do. It's just like, there's a war going on a little bit. There's a spiritual battle going on, and Christians need to raise up and be involved in tech space. And I'm just one of those guys saying, Lord, use me. And thankfully the Lord has taken me on a crazy journey since.
Well, and I think that, correct me if I'm wrong, but probably one of the influences is that you're a dad, and
Exactly.
that your kids are going to come up in a world that is even more toxic and culturally divisive, and being able to stand up as a Christian and say, okay, hold on, do you not see what's happening?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I hate when they say this on podcasts, David, because it's like, man, they should have started recording earlier, which is why I was like, hey, let's just hit record. We were talking about this before. But, people with fully formed brains, they don't try these social media apps for a while. Mm-hmm. And so the test dummies, the first billion or two that use it every day, all the time, like TikTok, for example, they're almost all 24 and under.
Yeah.
Almost all of them. I mean, there's outliers, but the outliers are not the super users. 25% of those Gen Z are using it for 8+ hours a day. Okay, 8.
Wow. So
you're talking about sleep and social media are the two main things they do in their world. Everything else is squeezed into the other 8 hours. School is somehow squeezed into the 8 hours, family time, whatever they are interested in, sports somehow. But, and maybe they're sleeping 5 hours, 6 hours. Cause that's something that's really interesting about social media, David, that your listeners need to understand is this is really a core thing is they have one job, which is to gain market share and return value to their shareholders. And when you have everybody on earth that has a phone and internet on your apps, you only have one way to grow, which is time during the day.
Yep.
And so they're not saying, TikTok's not saying, hey, let's expand in Zambia and let's get some, more phones distributed in this world. Let's get some more people online so they can be on TikTok. They're saying, man, how can we get 26% of U.S. teenagers on for 8+ hours a day? Those are our super users. How can we get 28%? How can we get 30%? How can we get 35%? So if you're frustrated about how long the people in your life are doom scrolling or on their phone, that's only going to get worse, unless something happens. Yeah. And thankfully, so I'll take you on another path. So one big thing that your listeners need to understand is that they need to gain market share. This is their job. And a lot of these guys are making 400,000 or 500,000, 700,000 a year in Silicon Valley, in Austin, wherever. These are some of the smartest people on earth, and they're paid a lot of money to manipulate our people. That's their job. And keep them on the app as long as humanly possible. And you know, what our algorithm does, let me go back forth because you said explain an algorithm. There's an evolution of social media. It started in 2004 with Mark Zuckerberg mainly. There were some pitter patter platforms before that, but really Facebook came out, and it was a very social platform. That's why it was called a social network, actually, a social network. And from 2004 to 2010, we actually had mental health increases in most of the countries that were using these platforms. And so it was like, 15, 30, 45 minutes a day. And I remember I had like 250 friends and I would get like 25 comments on a post. It was like actually social, like people would interact. Like I would see what my friends are doing. I would see what my cousins were doing that I haven't seen in like 10 years. It was awesome. It was really, really cool technology. And unfortunately, that wasn't a very profitable company. It was a little bit profitable. They made a little bit of money. But, Zuckerberg and others who were popping up and trying to disrupt, they were saying, how can we squeeze more money here? And that's always going to happen. That's happened in every single industry in all time. And human behavior is a pretty bad thing. If you read the Old Testament, you know that human behavior, it can get pretty bad pretty quick.
Yeah,
and then,
exactly.
And then there are sort of these renaissance where God raises up leaders and they shake things up, and then the world sort of improves for a while, and then human behavior takes it, steps in again. It's like, man, guys, I just bailed you out of Egypt, just walked you across the Red Sea, and now I'm up here on Mount Sinai with the cloud here. It's so obvious I'm talking to God. Everybody knows I'm talking to God, and you're down there making an idol. It's like, come on, guys, I just told you not to make idols. So we got to remember what we do, what our flesh wants to do. So flesh starts to take over, and there's a cool interview from 2006, 2007 with Zuckerberg where they say, what's next for Facebook? And he says, we're never going to change. This app is just so awesome. We're not going to change. 2010, they bring in a new COO. They bring in new investors, all this stuff. They start ranking content based on who's prettiest, who's smartest, who's coolest, that kind of thing. Because they realize that, the prettiest, smartest, coolest content gets people to stay on the platform longer. So let's start, rather than my post goes to my 250 friends, if it's not captivating enough, or if it's not cool enough, or if I'm not handsome enough, or whatever, we're only going to show it to 15 friends. We're not going to show it to the 250. And if you are really, really handsome, and you got your shirt off and you're flexing and you got the abs and all this stuff, we're not going to only show it to 250. We're going to show it to 2,500 friends.
Yeah.
And so that started what we call the highlight reel era. So we had the social era, then we had the highlight reel era. And honestly, I got caught up in it, David. I was at Oral Roberts. I was in good shape. I was posting the ab pics and, had no friends and all this in the real world and all this stuff. I was like, I got caught up in the highlight reel era. I had one of those Instagrams where I was trying to be cool and, and Facebooks and all this stuff. And I was basically doing what culture told me to do as a Division I baseball player, which is be the coolest, be the smartest, have the best life, show the best highlights of your life. And so, and I even remember going on dates where it felt like the whole purpose of the date was to get the picture, for Instagram. It was like, so it's like, I definitely got caught up in that. And, and I really believe that's the whole purpose of pumpkin patches, but I digress. So then we have another really big evolution in 2020, David, which is called the doom scroll era. Yeah. Basically, the front facing camera came out in 2015, and most mental health decline charts start really going south in 2015. Wow. And so the world got a front facing camera. And, there's this song from this Need to Breathe song, Banks. It's like, if you think you're not enough, I'm going to break all your mirrors. And that's such an interesting line of like, basically the whole world started to feel like they weren't enough because one, the prettiest girl goes first, the most cool and handsome guy goes first on the algorithm. And two, we're all supposed to be taking selfies all the time. And we have this sort of like, we have this tech craze of basically looking at ourselves all the time, filtering how our face looks and thinking about how we would look if we run our video, something through this app. And it's like someone, it's like, if you think that you're not enough, I'm going to break all your mirrors. And And so then we have 2020 where we have, this Chinese-owned app that comes in, and we're like, oh my gosh, how is this so good? And so it's like a super, super just the flesh loves this thing. It's like so personalized. And, now we know basically what TikTok did in that whole evolution, which has now been adopted by Instagram. It's now been adopted by LinkedIn. It's now been adopted by Facebook. It's now been adopted by porn sites. It's now been adopted by everything, which is this vertical scroll, algorithmically recommended content. Okay. So not only is it good enough, David, to rank content based on who's prettiest or whatever, we're going to take that to the most far extreme. It's not even just your sphere of influence. This isn't even people that you could possibly meet. Your friends don't matter. Your people you're following don't matter on this app. You're seeing a global recommendation algorithm where you could see anything at any time. There are no rules. There's no PG-13. There's no PG. We will show you anything at any age at all costs to get you to be on this app for as long as humanly possible. And not only that, David, before you even get in the app today, we already will have purchased all of your data. We know everything you're into. We bought it from Facebook and from Walmart. We know what you buy. We know what you like. We know what you think about. We know your microphone's on. When you use the filter, your biometric camera is on. We're looking at your face. We're understanding your personality. And so it's like it's not only just let's rank the prettiest highest. It's let's know everything we could possibly know about this person, and let's exploit them in whatever way possible with AI and supercomputers. And they do it in a very nuanced way, and it's basically through showing us videos, and they decide what video we see next.
Yeah.
And, they've tested those videos on other people like us, and they know what videos didn't work, where they clicked off at the 2-hour mark and they went and spent time with their family. And they know that because the microphone's on. They know they went and spent time and we're not talking about people here. It's important to remember. We're not talking about humans that are making these decisions.
Right.
We're talking about AI and
machines.
And machines.
Yeah.
So that was it. It's basically a very, let's say, godless group.
Yeah.
It comes in and says, well, let's build these AI and these recommendation engines. And almost none of them have kids. They're almost all in Silicon Valley. It's the most godless place in the entire world from a statistical standpoint. And they built the machines, and now the machines have been getting better every day with something called machine learning.
Machine learning, yeah.
Yeah, and AI. And so that's why you have, every high school girl on earth is crying when TikTok shut down for a day. It's because
calling 911.
Calling 911. Yeah, they're hooked. Yeah. They're hooked. And for you, David, you don't understand it, and that's fair because you're not scrolling this thing for 8+ hours a day or 5+ hours a day because you have responsibilities, you have a family, and you have a fully formed brain that says, no, you know what? I'm not going to compare myself to other guys at my stage that are killing it for 5 hours a day. Right. But you take a susceptible 12-year-old, you take a 7-year-old, which there's data that says about 33% of 7-year-olds are on TikTok, Instagram. Oh my gosh. You take someone like that and you say, hey, I'll give you an example, David, and this should freak out some of your listeners. And, the good news is the rest of this podcast will be about the solution.
There you go.
Because everybody's sick of talking about the problem. Let's talk about the solution. And if your listeners want a great book, I would recommend Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt. This is an NYU professor. Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt. It's one of the top selling books right now. It really, really dissects this problem. Unfortunately, doesn't offer much of a solution other than no phones in schools. So if any school administrators here, I'm sure you already heard this 1,000 times this year, but no phones in school. As soon as a kid gets on social media, one guy said it's basically the end of their childhood, which it sucks to say, but I'll give you an example. So a 13-year-old girl gets on TikTok. This was a Wall Street Journal study. They just set up a bunch of random 13-year-old girl accounts. This one's going to be out of Idaho. This one's going to be out of Oklahoma. This one's going to be out of New York City. And they found that every 13-year-old girl account in the first 2 weeks of the TikTok, they documented every video, which is a very tedious process. And I do it as well. We do it where we record young girls or boys or older or whatever's TikTok feeds, and we really dissect what are they actually seeing to reverse engineer and understand the algorithm. So these 13-year-old girls, every single one of them was shown at least 10,000 weight loss videos in their first 2 weeks.
Okay, hold on. 10,000
Yes.
weight loss videos.
Yeah, so not 1,000, not 100, not 50. And think about that. That's almost like, it's like the movies where they show like the Russians or the Nazis, they'd like strap our GIs down and make them watch these propaganda films. It's like 10,000 weight loss videos in 2 weeks. So that's like a total obvious recipe for body issues and insecurity is like 10,000 weight loss videos. And I could show you some screenshots. I don't know if we get video for a lot of your listeners here, David, but if you just type in AN on TikTok, AN, you'll see all kinds of anorexia feeds. Wow. So just AN, it could be animals. No. The first 12 results, if it's searched by a girl like that, are going to be anorexia-centric feeds. Wow. None of them have the word anorexia. It's, the O is switched with the, a zero or, has extra N's or A's or whatever. There's all these like sort of code words, and that's the culture. And that whole code culture is to stop any kind of like flagging of where an algorithm could protect and remove that content.
Gotcha.
So, anyway, that's one of those things where that's in one of the most popular books right now, that study, and they're not going to change.
No.
And the reason they're not going to change is they can't. You take a Meta, you take an Instagram, for example, which the data says about 40% of kids 12 and under with a smartphone are on Instagram, even though they're legally not allowed to. You got to be 13 and up to sign the terms of use. And the reason is because they show you stuff like that. So when you're 7, you're not ready. That's why the law says you got to be 13. But all you got to do right now is say you're 13, and so that's right. It's a whole fraudulent system, and now it's being uproared and uprooted. A whole lot of things about to change. We have a very, very, someone said our country's officially moved from manager mode to founder mode. If you saw that whole trend, founder mode means like, now it's time to build. Now it's time to fix. We're not just managing things that are here. Like we're shaking things up right now. Yeah. One of the things that's shaken up is we haven't done a law to protect youth on the internet since 1998. That's the last time we passed a law to really help youth online. And it was basically a law that says you got to be 13 or older to sign terms of use. And obviously we have really, really abandoned, really taken advantage of that, manipulated that. Yeah. Entrepreneurs have. So they're doing it willingly. They can't change. You take a Meta. Meta has 6,000 institutional investors. So I have, a couple handfuls of investors, and these are really great people that really believe in what I'm doing. And thankfully I get to be in complete control right now. And we have a real small, very, very, very smart focus team, ex Meta, ex TikTok, ex YouTube, ex Twitch, some of the smartest people on earth that could work on one of these platforms we have working on ours. And the reason is because they're so sick and tired of themselves. So most of them are parents, and they're paranoid, and they're pissed off. And, like me, I have a 2-year-old daughter, a 1-year-old son. I'm just not going to let it happen. My daughter's so precious right now. It's just not. Nobody's going to show her 10,000 weight loss.
It's like you said, they stop having a childhood. Got to protect their innocence.
Yeah, that's the main. I feel like that's one of the main jobs of a dad. What I just was watching. Let me get through the Meta thing. Meta has 6,000 institutional investors. This is BlackRock. This is JP Morgan. This is Bank of America. These are big boys with a lot of money. They cannot say, look, we're going to cut top line revenue by 75%. We're going to make these apps a lot healthier. We're going to get rid of porn once and for all. We're going to get rid of all the anorexia content. It's just not good. We're going to get rid of, fighting videos. If you're under 15, you're not going to watch fighting videos. We're going to get rid of, political unrest. If you're 12 and under, you shouldn't be seeing somebody getting killed in Gaza, whatever. It's like, no more political, if they come out and say those things, they are going to hurt their super user. Let's say they come out and say 2 hours is the cap for 15 and under, which should probably be the law. 2 hours should be the cap for 15, and will be the standard on our platform. 2 hour cap off on Sundays. But they're done. The whole executive team is done if they make those kind of decisions. It's just not going to happen. And this is why they don't even let their own kids on the platform, and why the Chinese version of TikTok is so clean. Because it's warfare. When you control what people see, you control what they think.
Yeah. They don't want their own citizens, their own kids taking in that content. They would much rather do it to their adversary and their generational upbringing.
Exactly. Yeah. And so in a way, that's kind of what we're doing here in the US. We're basically building what TikTok is in China. Just as good of an algorithm by every standard as far as like speed, recommendation. We are using biometric scanning in a different way, which is how you emotionally react to videos. So instead of doing it to keep you on the app as long as humanly possible, we are doing to keep you as happy and interested as possible.
Yeah.
So ours is called a scroll happy algorithm. Theirs is called a doom scroll algorithm.
Scroll happy.
Scroll happy. It's, I believe, the next evolution in social media. So we had the social era, we had the highlight reel era, we had the doom scroll era, and now we will be launching the scroll happy era, which is basically taking the same considerations a movie producer would take. A movie producer wants to know, how is my film going to make people feel? What are they going to take away? What are they going to learn? How is it going to inspire them? How is it going to empower them? They're not saying, how can I maximize minutes watched globally from my movie? They're saying, how is my movie going to inspire people and change people, get them to think? And then there are rules, no F word, no P word. And there are PG-13 rules.
Yeah.
And there are PG rules and there are rules, no unwanted nudity. There's a crazy stat that 37% of middle school girls on Instagram see unwanted nudity once a week. 37%. Zuckerberg admitted that on Capitol Hill.
Wow.
So there's really no such thing as training your algorithm. That's another thing that's been put out in mainstream culture. Just train your algorithm. Say I do not like this video, and they won't show you any more of those videos. And I even tried that on LinkedIn. I said no more politics on my LinkedIn because I'm there to. It's the only social media I have on my phone, and I just want it for the business reasons. And it's just been everything just gets so political so fast.
Yeah.
And I just keep seeing all these political videos. I keep pressing no for political. And there's a documentary on Prime. There's a couple of girls that struggle with anorexia. And even in the hospital, they're being filmed and they're pressing, I do not want to see anorexia content. I do not want to see anorexia content. And it just keeps showing it to them every fourth video, every fifth video. And so all that matters to them is how long are we using these platforms. And so naturally, the mental health of our society will go down as their profits go up. And so they are directly against us, these platforms. And the cat's really out of the bag. It's starting to get out of the bag. Like, thankfully, there's this, couple $2 billion smear campaign on TikTok recently. Now it's more looking at it from a national security risk, which is how the Supreme Court can get involved. But really what they're talking about is they're talking about manipulating all of our people. They're talking about 98% of our Gen Z are burnt out at work. 98. It used to be like 5% of people were burnt out at their job. 98. And it's because they're spending 5, 6, 7, 8 plus hours a day on these apps. And so no wonder they're burnt out. It's hard to be a productive member of society when you're on one of these apps.
That is exactly right. So that's so much. In the words of the great swordsman from The Princess Bride, Inigo Montoya, let me sum up. You, in a message to parents and grandparents, if you're not engaged and paying attention and really policing what your 7-year-old to 18-year-old is involved in when it comes to social media and the use of the phone, in the tablet and whatnot. It's not the harmless MySpace and early days of Facebook. It's manipulated. It's content that is aimed at your young, undeveloped brain, adolescent, and we need to be aware of that. And what you guys are doing is the solution, the alternative with the idea of this scroll happy algorithm. So let's talk a little bit about, so you're a parent out there and you're like, okay, I've been listening this whole time. I'm dumbfounded. Some of this I knew, some I didn't. Some of this I'm not surprised by. What, as a parent now of a 12-year-old girl, 14-year-old guy, what do I do and how can I be engaged?
So don't stop protecting your children online. If anything, turn it up a notch. I think about my dad standing in front of the screen, on Christmas Vacation in the bad scenes, about the middle of the room, and my mom yelling, don't listen, don't watch. And, and then it's like, well, now we have this new culture where almost all their media is digested on their phone in private, where no one can see what they're watching. It's like we used to watch TV wasn't as dangerous because it was kind of out in the open. It's like,
well, and broadcast TV is regulated, so there's certain things that can't be on broadcast TV, whereas cable TV kind of pulled that away in the 80s and 90s. And now, let me ask you this. Let me just interject this. The idea of protecting your kids, one of the things that I heard a psychologist say that is so important is when your kid goes to bed, you take their phone. Yeah.
So every single kid we focus grouped, and we're actually doing a clinical trials in partnership with Oral Roberts with Dr. Nelson there in the psych department. So we are brain scanning, face scanning, biometric scanning, heart rate scanning kids every single week at Oral Roberts this semester, and is helping feed the initial algorithm for Scroll Happy. And I can show you a ton of examples of takeaways from that. To answer your question, protect your kids more online. If they go to bed, take their phone. Every single kid we focus group scrolls for at least 2 hours before bed, according to them. Do you scroll before bed? Yes, every single one. How long? 2 hours or more.
Wow.
So you get in bed at 11 and you're going to bed at 1, and that time is spent consuming what? And you want an example? If you read the Bible for 2 hours a day, you read the whole Bible in a month. Okay, that's at about 1.25 speed. I know because I'm doing it right now. It's this challenge called the Shred. I'm doing it at 1.75 speed, and it's about an hour and a half a day. So I'm just doing some quick math there, and I'm on day 20. So I'm just getting ready to get in the New Testament. And honestly, our company is a different company than it was 20 days ago. It's the best thing I've ever done is read the Bible.
I love that.
And I would encourage everybody. It's called the Shred. It's on Bible app. Give it a shot. If you're like me and you're competitive, it is the best way to read the Bible because you don't stop. You don't dig into Ziklag for an hour and a half and say, what was the city David stopped at with his mighty men for refuge? You just keep going. You get the whole gist of the Bible. And it's really helped me understand God just, we just need God to reveal just a little fraction of his knowledge to us and we're set. It's kind of like Solomon. He starts his reign by saying, God, I can't do this. Like, I'm not gonna be able to do this. I need you. So that's how I'm handling up, and God's just downloaded most good things, including our algorithm, came to me in the middle of the night. I woke up with them and started writing them down. So I just really feel like we're on a mission here, and it's not Nick's mission or anybody else's mission. We're just sort of like stewarding this mission. All right. So what can you do? So go to scrollhappy.com, and get plugged in. There's going to be people here that are going to want to invest. There's going to be people here that want to advertise. Let's say you have a small business. Let's say you run ads on Meta, which most small businesses do. They're going to want to get involved. And then there's going to be people that want to be users. People should send it around. Scrollhappy.com. We already have some of the world's biggest creators on our wait list. So we have one of the creators on our wait list has 81 million followers, for example. We've got an entity, the biggest media conglomerate in the world as far as like TV shows you've heard of, movie shows you've heard of, things like that. So creators are not going to be a problem. It's going to be the best way to think about it is I have a bookshelf here behind me, David, and I know your listeners can't see it, but I got a bookshelf behind me. The top shelf of the bookshelf, that's what we're going to still have. That's your Dude Perfect. That's your Ryan Trahan. That's your Zach King. That's your awesome, wholesome creators that are funny, that do fashion content. There's ton of podcast stuff. We have great drawing creators, art. We have, great musical creators, great gaming creators, Roblox, Minecraft, talking about things that everybody's interested in, business,
right,
personal growth, fitness. but you have to be approved to post. That's a big thing. So we are removing all those bad bookshelves. We're removing the porn.
That's amazing.
We're removing the anorexia. And the other platforms can't do this because anybody can post at any time.
Right.
So I'll give you an example. We were able to grab a CTO that was leading about 500 engineers at Meta and unlimited data. So, stewarding, $500 billion budget, whatever. And his job was to go and clean up Facebook. Okay. Go and make Facebook cleaner. And he told me, and this was the senior engineer, and he came and worked for us, a guy out of New York, taking about an 80% pay cut to work with us. He came and worked. He told me, he said, okay, Dora the Explorer is good. All right. Can we all agree Dora is a good, safe, wholesome?
One would say.
If you put Dora on your good list, what they'll do in Pakistan and India or wherever is they'll start making Dora shooting up school videos or Dora cutting herself or whatever. And now with AI, they could make 100 accounts making 100 different variants of Dora doing ridiculous things. And the goal is to basically trick the algorithm because Dora's good, but still have this very sensational, clickbaity, crazy content that just sort of glues you and you can't stop like a car crash, and to squeeze dollars and to monetize the account, squeeze dollars and get clicks or whatever. And so he told me a powerful line, and this is a Meta senior engineer at Meta making almost $1 million a year, a little bit less. He told me it's impossible to blacklist evil, but we can whitelist good. And that was a really cool line. And that's basically it. We know that if you want to call them competition, whatever, they're never going to be able to blacklist evil. First of all, they can't get on the same page on right and wrong. And when you don't have truth as a company, it gets really, really hard to moderate.
Right.
And so we've got a really powerful weapon, which is we get to whitelist good. And we are the first exclusive platform in the world. So even the guy with 81 million followers, he hasn't been approved yet. We're starting to approve our creators. So we are going after just the 5,000 best creators in the world. That's all you need for a really great algorithm. You need 5,000 of the best creators in the world that are wholesome, that are funny or smart or, fit or whatever. And then we have, these additional rules, which is none of the cheap crap. No anorexia content, just period. So it doesn't matter who you are. And, big bans, and big restrictions and you're done kind of thing. And so that's how we keep it so clean. Scrollhappy.com. It's how you can get involved. You can join the wait list. You can, potentially invest in the movement here or advertise. And the ROI for advertisers is going to be ridiculous for a while. Ridiculous. And we are not going to launch until we have millions on the wait list. So our launch strategy includes letting people off in small waves. It's something I learned from the Web3 industry is how to sort of control supply and demand and create hype. One of the things that got me through is I was a part of a company that got 9 million tweets in one day. And I was second in line on the marketing side. But, I really know how to make things viral online. That's a gift God's given me. And I understand human behavior, specifically Gen Z and Alpha. And, that's how people can get involved. Our algorithm is absolutely kicking butt. So what we're doing at Oral Roberts is we're showing kids their TikTok for 4 minutes, and then we're showing them our algorithm for 4 minutes. So it's doom scroll versus scroll happy. Wow. And we're measuring their brain. We're measuring their heart rate. Their brains are almost all much healthier when they watch sort of wholesome, content.
Sure.
And not only that, their emotions, all their positive emotions are better. And they have less negative emotions. So obviously less anger, less fear, less disgust, and more joy. Yeah. And unfortunately, joy is the only thing we can tell from your face. There's only one way to show that you're happy. It's a smile. Every other emotion we get from the face is negative. So a lot of what our scroll happy algorithm does is take into account the absence of negative emotions. Unlike other platforms, David, our cam that analyzes your face starts off, and you can turn on, it's called Happy Cam. We just got our trademark back yesterday.
Nice.
So I can talk about it. But same with Scroll Happy. It's like, how did we trademark Scroll Happy? And our competitors are $1 trillion companies, and they never thought to trademark Scroll Happy. It's because that's not what they're thinking about, David.
Yep.
So we're going to have, we just need 500 of our millions of users to turn on this Happy Cam. And we have some incentives for them to do it, which is basically, it will biometric scan them. It'll see how they're feeling when they watch all the videos. And then every video will get a score, and we'll remove videos that don't test well, and we'll promote videos that test well. So, and I'll give you some examples. So I'm looking right now at a 16-year-old that we tested in Tulsa, and I won't give a name or anything like that, or school. 16-year-old female. In her first 6 seconds on her TikTok, she was shown a SpongeBob meme that's a still, and it's funny. It's got a funny text. And her joy spiked 74%. She had, she was about a 50. If you just remember a number, this is from 0 to 100. She's about a 50 interested and positive emotions. So joy, things like that. About a 50 out of 100, which is really good. Really, really strong for social media. So good job, TikTok. TikTok's a good app so far. Then we get to 26 seconds in. She sees a like relatable banter, teen jokey kind of meme, and with some music, and her positive emotions and engagement are at about 90. So very, very strong. Mm-hmm. And then she sends that video to a friend, and her positive emotions are at about 70 and engagement. Okay. So doing well. She was at 50, then 90, then 70. Then it's like, okay, you got to realize if TikTok keeps her in that state of happy and sort of like wholesome happy with talking to her friends, she's not going to stay on for 8+ hours a day because she won't be a drug addict. Okay. Cigarette company doesn't say we want people smoking 3 cigarettes. They say we want people smoking 50 cigarettes a day. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's how the product is built. And again, these are not humans. So the first 45 seconds I just told you about, is actually 47 seconds, had a purpose, which was to give her a taste of things she really likes and sort of give her some good dopamine. Then it does the disgusting stuff. Okay. At second 48, okay, so directly after texting the video to a friend, she sees a fighting video. And the text in the fight video is something like, you know, these white boys are going to kill each other. And it's a pretty aggressive fighting video. She only watches it for 2 seconds. She quickly scrolls out of it because her anger and fear spiked 210%, which is the equivalent to seeing a bear at your campfire. That's basically the equivalent. It's not normal in human nature for your anger and fear to spike 210% in a 2-second period. Wow. Then she scrolls, she freaks out. And by the way, her interest and motion score was about 0 out of 100. Okay, almost 0. Then she goes to an unrealistic lifestyle video, which she watches for 8 seconds. And she's seeing all these, you know, fake beauty enhancements on females, I'll say. And it's scrolling fast. It's all these comparison to all these like unrealistic beauty standards. She watches that for 8 seconds. She actually has a negative number, which we very rarely see on the fighting and this one, a negative number on emotions, and her engagement is a 1 out of 100. And then she sees a teen dance video with preteens, basically, you know, kind of like dancing seductively or whatever. She watched that for 15 seconds. So she actually watched that longer than she watched the edifying, wholesome, awesome content. So TikTok thinks it's better. But her fear went up 65%, her disgust went up 78% because she's comparing herself to them. And she's thinking about her compared to them. And her positive emotions were 0.02, and her engagement was an 8 out of 100. So what we have here is not they're more interested in this content. We don't have that it makes them happy or joyful or makes them feel good in any way. We have a scenario where they're doing this. I'm holding up a book from 2015 from a Stanford professor. This is where most of these guys went to school.
Give them a little, get them hooked.
Yeah. Give them a little, get them hooked. They're being hooked. She is being manipulated by that algorithm.
Get that dopamine hit and then take it away and make you feel vulnerable and then say, "Isn't this what you want?"
That's right. So the reason Up is scoring so well, David, like we've never seen anything like it. Like we're showing the Human Perception Company, the top company in the world at this, and they say, we don't see these numbers. Also, the difference between ours and TikTok is blowing their mind. But the reason is because we just want to give people content they're interested in, and that makes them feel good. That's it. Yeah. That's our KPI.
So you can scroll happy.
We want them to scroll happy.
Love it.
And a lot of good things happen when you scroll happy in your life. And you know what? You can't scroll happy for 5 hours a day or 8 hours a day. You know, if you seek content that reminds you to go spend time with your family, that content's not going to rank on TikTok. They will never push that video to the top. They want the video that says, here's how you make $1 million on TikTok as a creator. They want you deep diving. They want you a part of the problem. And comments can be manipulated, David. My wife sent me a golf video before I was saying, all right, enough is enough with Instagram. Because I used to dibble dabble a little bit with Instagram. I haven't really posted since 2016, 2017, just infrequently. Like my wife's like, hey, we got a baby, you have to post. I'm like, why do we do this?
Yeah, I noticed that. I follow you on Instagram. I'm like, where's Nick? Where's the kids?
I don't even think I posted my last baby. I got to get on it. Maybe I did. I don't know how many babies I got on there. We got 2 and 1 on the way.
Oh, awesome.
I'm going for 6. My wife wants 4, but
just, let's just keep, that's great. But I have, myself, I have 6 between my wife and I. So I love it.
6 is a great number. I think you have to get like a weird car though, right? That's what my wife's scared of, but I'm praying.
Yeah,
for
maybe.
I don't know if you
fight that.
If they're older, you can make like an Escalade work or whatever.
Right.
I think, right.
Exactly.
Or, all right. So back to Instagram. So they manipulate the comments too. So if let's say a 30-something guy is into golf, he'll see a video where the husband and wife are getting in a fight about golf, and his comments at the top, remember, they want confirmation bias. They want you to be, believe what you thought. They want you on the app as long as possible. His comments will say, she needs to leave you alone. She needs to get her own hobby. She's replaceable. And then when you send it to your wife and they watch the same video, her comments will say, he needs to spend time with his family. He needs to stop being a deadbeat dad. He's replaceable. Wow. And so you have an algorithm that wants both genders to replace their spouse. And then obviously, the guy's seeing all the inappropriate videos in his, sort of recommendation feed, his reels. The algorithm's playing with him. I'm showing you the one of a 16-year-old girl. The algorithm plays with me in a different way. It plays with you in a different way, David. It plays with the 77-year-old in a different way. And, if boomers and Xers think they're exempt, have you ever been around a boomer Xer? They're on their phones constantly.
Yeah.
So we have our own. So the scroll happy algorithm is going to be for everybody. We are going to come out, focus on Gen Z because that's what you do. Xers and boomers will never adopt first. They're always sort of late adopters.
Right.
And then they're very loyal, as we talked about, as you mentioned before the show started.
Yeah, all in.
Yeah. So we're going after Gen Z. It's not our strategy, David, to say, hey, all the grandparents and parents should make their kid get on up. That's not going to be our strategy. That's not going to be a winning strategy, unfortunately. But, if you're in that sweet spot between, let's say, 8 and 15, where you really have a lot of control, or maybe 8 and 12, I don't know, depends on the household. They need to get off Instagram, TikTok, and they need to get on the wait list for Up as soon as possible. And honestly, I would prefer no social media altogether. But if they must, Up is a really, really great alternative. It's kind of like processed foods and organic food. Right now they're crushing Ho-Hos, they're crushing Oreos, they're crushing Lay's chips all day long. And we can't see it because it's not a physical damage, but it's doing the damage in their heart. It's doing the damage in their brain.
Yeah.
And that's called the anxious generation. And we're coming out with organic food, David. And you as a parent, it's like, do you want your kid crushing Ho-Hos and Oreos and Lay's all day long? And not just your kids. What about society? What happens as a society if we launch? That's why we're going to launch this so big, and why we have so much capital rallying behind this, is because this can change the world. Every day, 764 billion minutes is spent consuming these videos recommended by these algorithms. 764 billion minutes.
Nearly a trillion.
Yeah. That's a big number. They
It's
say
huge.
don't talk about above a billion too much because it just goes over everyone's head, including mine. It's like hard to even fathom. That's a lot of minutes. We're in a situation here, David, where if we get half of 1% of those minutes, we're in the Fortune 500. That's how valuable that attention is. And so we really are going after people that want the light, not people that want to be in the darkness. Are we going after the people that love to crush 7 Snickers a day and, they're 1,200 pounds? No. We're not really caring about. We care about them. We want them to come, but we're not. That's the Bible says people are in the darkness hate the light.
Yeah,
we are providing a tool that for people that the billion people that tried to quit these apps in the last year, a billion. The number for cigarettes is only 700 million people that tried to detox for its toxicity in the last year.
Yeah,
30% more have tried to quit social media and said this is not good for me. I have to quit versus cigarettes. And we're building this for them. This is for those billion people.
I love it. So for our listeners and our viewers, in the show notes, I have a number of links there for you, so you can connect. You can find out more about the app that we'll be releasing. Do you have any kind of a idea? I know it's 2025. It's early on in 2025.
Yeah. So I have the app on my phone right now. So we're testing it. Our team. We have creators starting to upload their content. So we're in what's called a closed beta right now. We're technically starting on Saturday. Our closed beta. It's going to depend on waitlist growth, which is going to depend on sort of marketing tech. We are not going to let people in until we have millions on the waitlist. That's not going to happen.
So you need people to get on the waitlist. Go to the website.
Yeah. It's not. We're going to make so much noise, David. You're not going to believe it. We are doing a lot of influencer marketing, a lot of podcasts, a lot of press. We have a hefty budget building for our go-to-market. And then, but look, right now we need champions for the mission here. We do a lot to rally around movies, edifying movies. We do a lot to rally around edifying books. And I'm telling you, they're not watching movies. They're not watching books. I'm telling you this.
Yeah.
We need to rally around this. We're going to have one shot at this. Someone is going to bring healthy social media to the world. Someone is going to. I've seen too much data to say it's not going to happen. So, organic food will happen.
Yeah.
We had testers tell us it feels like Trader Joe's for social media. If you have a Trader Joe's in Tulsa, it just feels different when you walk into Trader Joe's.
It does.
It's cleaner. Everything, everything's been vetted and all the products are going to be good. And so it's not going to feel like Walmart. It's not going to feel like Costco. It's going to feel like Trader Joe's for social media. It's going to feel pristine and clean. So it's time to rally behind up. If you really care about culture, specifically youth culture, and you want to see a rebound, there's a crazy stat, David. I'll leave you with, and we could talk a little bit more or whatever, but I'll give you a dream. My wife had a dream, and I believe dreams can be prophetic sometimes. And obviously this is a faith listening, and I'm not shy about my faith as the founder of this company. Yeah. We're not a Christian company. We're not a Christian company. We don't hire on that standards. We don't vet creators on that standards. But our values very much come from the Word of God. Specifically Philippians 4:8, which is a verse that says, whatever you do, focus on things that are true, that are pure, that are honorable, that are praiseworthy, that are excellent, that are really good. And that's our algorithm. We remove the crap that everybody kind of knows is bad, and all the data says is bad. Like, everybody knows we shouldn't be watching 10,000 weight loss videos in 2 minutes. It's common sense. We are the common sense platform from a recommendation standpoint. And I want to leave you with this dream. My wife had this dream that a 747 was in our backyard, and typically in dreams, because we had some people pray about it and look into it. Typically, plane crashes signify spiritual warfare, and your house typically represents the kingdom. And so the first third of the plane was dead. The middle third of the plane she could see was dying. My 6-year-old nephew ran in from the plane with a number on his forehead and say, "You have to help us. You have to help us. You have to help us." And we believe through a lot of prayer that signifies Gen Alpha.
Yeah. And
so Gen Alpha's in this plane. They're dying. They're hurting. And if you remember the Good Samaritan story, God tells us, love God, love people. And they say, what does love your neighbor mean? and he tells the Good Samaritan story. And, you know, the Good Samaritan story is someone that's down on their luck, someone that's been beat up, someone that's kind of hopeless. And that's like these kids in the plane. They're in trouble. And, you know, we're not as a company giving them the gospel, just like the Good Samaritan didn't give the gospel. He just walked it. He picked him up, he took him to the hotel, and he gave him his 2 silver coins. There's a lot of money back then. And he said to the guy running the hotel, he said, if you need more, I'll come back and give you later, which means basically gave him everything he had. So he took the guy, picked him up, brought him to the hotel, gave him everything he had from a money standpoint. And so that's what my wife asked me to do in this dream. She said, you have to help these people. You have to help these people. So I run and grab a ladder. I start pulling them out of the dream. I start bringing them into the house. And she says, whoa, you know, we don't know these people. That could be dangerous. And so she felt like the dream meant that she needs to be fully on board and not doubt and not fear. And we need to remember as Christians, we are not meant to walk in fear. This is a David versus Goliath. So if anybody wants to reach out to me and is like, hey, I'm nervous. Like, how are we going to, don't do it. We don't need the fear. We don't want that in our camp. You know, David was successful with Goliath because he's like, what's the problem here?
Yeah. Like, I don't get it. Yeah. Why are you letting this guy talk this way?
Yeah, and everybody's shaking in their boots, and he's like, guys, I really don't get the problem. Like, we have God on our side. What's the problem here? We can take this guy down easy. And that's thankfully the posture the Lord's given me. It's like, what's the problem? 1 billion people want to quit these apps. They have no option right now. Let's build an option. Yeah. And by the way, some of the biggest creators in the world are family friendly. A lot of them, 100 million followers, 50 million, 80 million, 70 million, 60 million, 40 million. These are the best of the best of the best creators in the world, and they're not doing the cheap tricks. And so all we're doing is connecting those two. And, you know, I was wondering about the number because she remembered it started with 3 and was in the millions. It was on Gen Alpha's head. And I think I figured it out. I want to go after 1% of the market. Just as a company, it's one of our goals. We want to get 52 million people on the app as soon as possible. That's our first big goal. We want to go after 1%. Yeah. And most of those are going to be in Gen Alpha and Gen Z. And if you look at the data, David, and this is a sad stat, but 10% of teenagers, high school students in the U.S., 10% attempt suicide annually now. That's a stat. It's that high. 10%.
Unbelievable.
That's the GED Foundation stat. So you got 1,200 in your school, you're going to have 120 attempted suicides every year. That's nuts. That is crazy. Yeah, like, how are we letting this happen? We have to do something about it. If we do nothing, it will only get worse. So we believe through everything we've done, we have a team of neuroscientists, psychologists, our app is going to be at least 3 times better for mental health, if not way more. But very conservatively, we think at least 3 times better, which means suicide attempts should go down by 3x, which is where we kind of were, pre-2015. Suicide attempts is even higher than 3x higher, but, you know, actual suicide is about 3x, actual anxiety is about 3x, actual depression is about 3x. In youth since the front-facing camera. We basically, our mental health is, you know, sometimes it's 2x, sometimes it's 1.5, but most of the time it's 3x. And if you read Jonathan Haidt's book, you'll see all those graphs, and they're on anxiousgeneration.com. Anxiousgeneration.com. So back to the story. So I'm wondering, what's this number that's in the 3 millions? And we've had this 52 million number on our goal sheet for a long time. And if you take that number and you say, okay, let's say those are on par, and they're 5.2 million of them would have attempted to take their own life, okay, if it wasn't for Up, if Up never came to market. And if we can improve that by 3x, that means that number on his forehead is 3.5 million, which is how many youth suicide attempts we will prevent every year by capturing 1%. For every 1% of the market we capture. And so that dream really got me fired up. Everything that's good about our company came through either dreams or prayer or reading the Bible. So I'm just being real here. I'm just being real. Nick from Wichita is not supposed to build the next, shake Silicon Valley up social app. But I don't think that's the case here. I think we're going to be successful. I think Scroll Happy is going to be very successful. Yeah. They're going to try to peg us as extremist platform or whatever, which is going to be really hard to do because we have no politics on our platform at all. So there's no political angle here.
Well, you stand for truth. How dare you? You know?
But we're going to try to, if it's objectively, if it gives young teenagers an anger spike, like she saw a bear, and a fear spike, it's not going to be on our platform. So if you're like trying to make a case for fighting videos for 16-year-old girls to see more fighting, I saw like 3 fights in my life. It's like,
middle school and high school. And I remember how I felt watching the fight. Like it was, it's not a normal feeling. And to think that they're seeing that every few minutes or every 7 minutes or whatever is really insane. So look, my challenge is this: if you're gonna, we need helpers, and God's bringing us ridiculous helpers, ridiculous people from all over the world. I'm talking about billionaires. I'm talking about New York Times bestselling authors, 20, 30, 40 books, just in the last 24 hours, both of those. God's opened the doors. It's all come from him. I'm not afraid to give him all the glory because I know that I couldn't do this without him. No shot. And I'm just like, let Nick stay out of the way. It's kind of like Paul said, I'm a slave to Christ, and I'm not afraid to talk about it. I'm a slave to Christ. And, but God wants to redeem the tech space. I know that for a fact. I heard him say in prayer, protect my children. And, he's pissed off about what we're doing, what's going on with social media. And we're going to give the world an alternative.
His children matter. I want to just ask our GEB family, the worldwide family, ministers, youth pastors, parents, grandparents, the thousands of you that listen every single month. I just want to really implore you to wake up to some of this and to make yourself availed to the links that I've put there that Nick has been talking about, because this isn't something I think we can, as important as it is that you wouldn't feed your kid candy bars over and over and over every day. We have to be aware of just exactly what is happening in not only their lives, but how important it is as we as parents and grandparents face this with, as the Bible says, with a face that is turned towards God and has pure hands. And I think we need to really just take a moment and pray as well. And I want to do that, Nick, before we go. I want to pray for you. I want to pray for your company. Usually I ask the guests to pray, but I feel led to pray for you guys. And then we want to stay up to date on what's happening, and we're excited to hear and see when the app goes live in its post-beta phase. And we just really believe that God's going to do some amazing things.
Awesome. Let's do it.
Lord, I just lift up Nick, his entire team, and all those that are a part of UP and the Scroll Happy movement. And I just pray right now in Jesus' name, Lord, first of all, you'd protect them. You would give them innovative ideas, give them new and amazing creative ways to continue to set this app and this new really just trajectory for social media for this generation, the generation to come, and all those that need to have a difference, Lord, in what they have to get away from the doom scrolling and to scroll happy. And I just pray you would have your hand on them. We pray for a wonderful launch, and we thank you, Lord, that you will get the glory, because as you said, and we know from your word, that the very same power that raised you from the dead, it dwells within us. And so we ask you, Lord, to order his steps, continue to bless his family and all his kids and the one on the way. And we thank you, Lord, for good things ahead in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
And I'm biased because I want to see you do great, because we're over you, fam, right?
That's right.
We want to continue to do as our founder was told by the Lord, is to take the healing power and that light into the world.
That's right.
Into the world where the voice is heard small and that power is not known. And I mean, if this isn't an example of taking that founder's vision beyond anything that he or anybody of that era, or even in the last 30 years could imagine. I mean, it's exciting because, God's the ultimate creator. Nothing takes him by surprise. So why shouldn't Nick from Wichita do this? Yeah.
I appreciate that. Anybody that's listening, if you could connect with me on LinkedIn as well, I'd love to connect with you over there, Nick Rotola. And just so thankful, David, for you taking the time. And just if there's ever a big champion of Oral Roberts in this world, Oral Roberts University, it's me. And I was kind of a piece of work coming from a small D1 in Michigan when I showed up on campus, and got to go through and do an MBA there. Met a lot of really great people, like we were talking about the Gunn family earlier, and Dr. Wright, and obviously Dr. Wilson and everybody else involved. What a school, what a place, and what a time for that campus to just be doubling down and thriving like crazy. That's and building new buildings left and right, and just leading the innovation. So and Mike Matthews, Neil Stenzel. There's so many amazing people over there, and so really grateful for Oral Roberts University. Really grateful for this broadcast, and thanks for the slot.
Absolutely. And we look forward to seeing what all happens over the next few weeks and months and just an incredible 2025. I want to thank you, the viewers and the listeners, for tuning in. For those of you watching and listening on Pray, we're glad you're there. Be sure to hit that bell on YouTube and subscribe. And please, after you've heard this, nearly 1 hour interview, share it with those that you love. Share it with your friends, your parents, your grandparents. Share it with your kids. And let's really be aware of what we can do as Christians to make a difference in this generation and the next one to come. Until next time, I will see you right back here on the GEB America podcast. Remember, we drop a new episode every Tuesday. I'm David Groves saying so long for now.